Cheers.
Cheers. Right after toothpaste.
Ginseng and toothpaste.
So, because we were talking about starting out a different way, we're just playing around with what we do. I've got a couple books that I'm just reading, and found some interesting quotes. So I thought we could start off with one.
Yeah.
Maybe get to a few of them. But I just want to hear what you think, because they're pretty. I found them pretty interesting. I'm not sure how much to tell you about like why I chose it or what I find interesting about it, or maybe just read you them first.
Yeah, just read it, and then I'm sure some of that stuff will come out.
Yeah, I think so.
This one's from...
This is from Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. First published in 1957. Do you want contextualization or just...
No?
Dry?
Sure.
She stood looking up at the structure, her consciousness surrendered to a single sight and a single wordless emotion. But she had always known that an emotion was a sum totaled by an adding machine of the mind, and what she now felt was the instantaneous total of the thoughts she did not have to name. The final sum of a long progression, like a voice telling her by means of a feeling. If she had held onto Quentin Daniels, with no hope of a chance to see the motor for the sole sake of knowing that achievement had not died on earth, if, like a weighted diver sinking in an ocean of mediocrity under the pressure of men with gelatin eyes, rubber voices, spiral-shaped convictions, non-committal souls, and non-committing hands, she had held, as her lifeline and oxygen tube, the thought of a superlative achievement of the human mind. If, at the sight of the motor's remnant in a sudden gasp of suffocation, as a last protest from his corruption-eaten lungs, Dr. Stadler had cried for something, not to look down at, but up to. And this had been the cry, the longing and the fuel of her life. If she had moved, drawn by the hunger of her youth for a sight of clean, hard, radiant competence, then here it was before her, reached and done. The power of an incomparable mind given shape in a net of wires sparkling peacefully under a summer sky, drawing an incalculable power out of space into the secret interior of a small stone hovel. She thought of this structure, half the size of a boxcar, replacing the power plants of the country, the enormous conglomerations of steel, fuel, and effort. She thought of the current flowing from this structure, lifting ounces, pounds, tons of strain from the shoulders of those who would make it or use it, adding hours, days, and years of liberated time to their lives. Be it an extra moment to lift one's head from one's task and glance at the sunlight, or an extra pack of cigarettes, bought with the money saved from one's electric bill, or an hour cut from the workday of every factory using power, or a month's journey through the whole open width of the world on a ticket paid for by 1 day of one's labor, on a train pulled by the power of this motor, with all the energy of that weight, that strain, that time replaced and paid for by the energy of a single mind who had known how to make connections of wire follow the connections of his thought. But she knew that there was no meaning in motors or factories or trains, that their only meaning was in man's enjoyment of his life, which they served, and that her swelling admiration at the sight of an achievement was for the man from whom it came, for the power and the radiant vision within him, which had seen the earth as a place of enjoyment, and had known that the work of achieving one's happiness was the purpose, the sanction, and the meaning of life.
Oh. Okay. We need to keep the book open because I don't know how much of that I took in.
Yeah. It's pretty dense. Her writing is like a fucking thick ass forest.
Okay.
It's just blocks of
Yeah.
like long paragraphs,
Yeah.
multi-claused and
Okay. Do you want to say what the most interesting part of it is? Like the most interesting.
I thought well, what do you think about this statement that she had always known that an emotion was a sum totaled by an adding machine of the mind?
It was a sum totaled by the adding machine.
I couldn't quite wrap my head around it, and it seems so simple. But I'm like, that was the first thing that leapt out at me.
I think the bit that comes after it as well. Because she surrendered to a single sight and a single wordless emotion, but she had always known that an emotion was a sum, totaled by an adding machine of the mind. And what she now felt was the instantaneous total of the thoughts she did not have to name, the final sum of a long progression, like a voice telling her by means of a feeling. I think it's for me the instantaneous total that is more interesting because I can't really feel anything about that emotion being a sum totaled by the adding machine of the mind because it just feels wrong. I just want to say, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's such it's such strange language to use for an emotion. But that thing of feeling the instantaneous total of what's been a long progression of things, that feels like something I can understand more. And I don't know, I'm trying to think if I've ever felt that. And I think I have, but it's one of those things that's very hard to grasp onto. You know, I mean, I suppose very often when you come to making a final, I don't know, when you finally know what your decision about something is. You know, there have been a few of those for me which have been sparked by sort of knowing what my final feeling about something is. Whether it's been like ending a relationship or walking away from a job. You know, those are two situations I can think of where for a long time there was a back and a forth, almost like numbers being put in to this calculator and things just being sort of added and subtracted and all of that kind of stuff. And then there did come a moment where I thought, no, this is the final. This is the sum total of how I feel about this thing.
Yeah. It seems so weird to think of it as numbers.
Yeah, it does.
Because numbers are so objective.
Yeah. But we talk about positives and negatives, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know how useful I think that language is. It you know, it's a very black and white kind of language to use. But Because then it gets into how useful is it sometimes to be able to see life in more brutal, objective terms.
Yeah.
You know, when you're weighing up the pros and the cons of something.
Yeah.
Which, if it's a very complicated, or I don't know, I think if you're somebody who overthinks things and can get yourself into traps of your mind, that might be finally the only way that you can objectively see something.
Yeah.
Like strip it back to basics.
Yeah. I think she presents people as being unrealistically basic.
Yeah.
I think. Looking at
all people, or
well, her characters.
Okay, because this woman, I don't know who this woman is, but it's a very complex passage.
Yeah.
Describing like a very complex thought process.
Yeah.
But in it does also contain nods towards people who it seems she considers to have a more basic kind of life. The people for whom this motor or whatever is gonna provide respite.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe basic's not the right word, but in the way that her characters are able to sort of think, well, and this is the thing that changed their life forever.
Yeah.
And the one pursuit through which they just or they go through life with one pursuit.
So it is then more like a formula.
Yeah.
And that person's life is almost more like a formula.
Yeah. I think she uses her characters as equations or as numbers in her formula to... Is propound a word?
Yeah.
To propound her theory. Which is, I don't know. I'm coming more to think of this as not the same as... This book is not the same as... The Princess Bride, which I'm also reading right now.
Yeah, and also not the same as like Middlemarch.
Yeah.
Because when you read out that section, and as I'm looking at it on the page, it looks in some ways quite similar to me as like parts of George Eliot, which are very dense as well and very complicated. In all of those multi-clause sentences you were talking about, and that sort of slowly unraveling and unwinding from a single moment or single thought, the whole history of someone's life, which George Eliot can do as well, but in a very different way.
Yeah. I wonder if George Eliot is sort of doing it in order to figure out who this person really is, whereas Ayn Rand is doing it in order to tell you how to lead your life.
Yeah, and I don't know whether George Eliot part of it is as well to help you understand how complicated and multifaceted your life is, so that you can have more empathy for the character, but also for yourself and for other people.
Yeah.
And with Ayn Rand, whether it's she's actually trying to show you how, not how simple, I don't know, or how basic and...
Yeah, I don't know what's the word. Dogma. It's almost like she's sympathetic. George Eliot is sympathetic and empathetic. I'm not sure which. Whereas Ayn Rand is dogmatic. It's like, this is what you've got to believe. Because look at this equation.
Because it's reasonable?
Because it's reasonable. And it's objective. Her philosophy is objectivism.
Yeah. And rationality?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas George Eliot is like, we're just like human beings, man, floating through emotions. I don't know, but a much more nuanced view of a human being.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a good example of her writing, because it's quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, there are some lovely moments.
I really like this, and I don't even really care what it's saying. I like how she says, talking about all that fucking getting an extra pack of smokes and looking at the sun and stuff. And all that energy of that weight, that strain, that time replaced and paid for by the energy of a single mind who had known how to make connections of wire follow the connections of his thought. I don't know, I quite like that idea of putting plans into motion, or like putting thoughts into the material world. So she does nice things with language, and she has some good imagery. She has some terrible, like that simile I was showing you.
That's a really... It's made me think that bit, because I noticed that bit when you were reading it the first time. But now you've made me think about the difficulty, the challenge inherent in actioning our thoughts.
Yeah.
Like making our thoughts action in the real world, and how so often the action that we have to take, the thing we have to enact in the real world, might look so different from our thought of it.
Yeah.
You know, might look so different from the original thought, and might even look like a perversity. It might look like a perverse notion of that thought, which can really demoralize you, I think. I don't know, you just really made me think about the struggle that I'm going through at the moment with trying to, and I know it talks a lot about the word achieve in there, and that's a word I struggle with as well, because I really, really don't know what achievement looks like to me. Like, I don't know how I feel about that as a word, and when I'm asked for achievements, my achievements, I never know what to say. And I don't think it's that you haven't, well, yeah, I know it's not that I haven't achieved anything. It's more how I subjectively view, relate to, understand, feel about the actions that I've taken.
Yeah.
And whether they had any connection, or what thought, impulse, desire they were originally connected to. Because that original thought, and then the impulse and the impetus and the motivation to enact it out in the world and make it something in the world, can get distorted, you know, first of all by just your own mind layering complexities and obstacles and doubts and judgments upon it. So it has to battle its way through all of those things. And then it also has to battle through all of the real obstacles that other people might throw in its way, so that the actual thing that then comes out might look very different. And it then becomes this huge timeline and time scale of that thought being able to achieve its primary purpose in the world.
Yeah.
It's a thing I really struggle with, I think. And I don't know if everybody does. I feel like Elon Musk probably has a very different way of feeling about these things. But for me, I find that I struggle with it, because if I have a thought and I can't immediately act it out in the way that I want to, I don't know. That's really difficult for me. Which is hard, because 99% of the things that you think and want to create in the world won't look the way.
Yeah.
Or, you know, might not even be the original thing. And it's trying to sympathize with yourself and see how those things are still connected. And if they're not connected, to know how to stop and get back on track.
Towards what your original thought was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that line makes it sound so simple.
Yeah, that you
think
know.
up the wires and then you put them in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like, bish bosh.
Yeah, knowing how to make wires follow the connections of your thought.
Yeah.
The lines of your thought.
And it's actually like thought, shitstorm of being a human.
Yeah.
Then manifestation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if everybody on the planet, including Elon Musk, would empathize with that thought to a greater or lesser extent, I think, of this. Like, I have ideas, but then when it actually happens in the world, it's always different. But I think we could probably become more cool with that fact. And more something that has helped me, I think, is doing it in a very obvious, visible, visual way with making art and collages. Because I know a shitload about writing and stories and practically and academically and historically, like I've researched the hell out of that. Whereas with the art, I just really enjoy art, and I've never studied it, and I can't draw, and I've never taken a class in art ever. But I really enjoy going to galleries, and I really like looking through books and even graffiti and comic books, and like I just really fucking love art. And when I start cutting shit out from magazines, I never have an idea other than I want to make some art. And lo and behold, 2 hours later, I've got 5 pieces of art that I had never thought of in my life.
Yeah.
Because I need to look through the magazines and go, oh, that's a cool color, or that's a nice shape, or oh, that's a funny looking thing, I'll cut that out. And then over time I have more cuttings around me, and then kind of looking at them, glance, a couple go together, or an idea comes into my mind, I'm like, oh, that would work. And so I've shown myself through repetition that even if you have no plan other than a very basic one, things will come about. And some pretty good things, some pretty crap things, some okay things, mediocre things, but pretty good things. So I am still constantly racked with fear of like, I've got all these plans and they're not going to be as they are in the real world, but chances are they'll be pretty good. And what things can I put in place to facilitate them being, or to encourage their growth, or not encourage, but like things to put in place to maximize their potential of being good rather than bad.
Yeah. You're making me think about, I heard recently a director of an organization talking about how she really believes in the technique of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And she really puts a lot of store by that. And she was just saying that, like, fake it till you make it is actually just, okay, you're not this thing. You're not this person. You're not a person who is good at saying no or being tough. So just pretend that you are. Act as if you are somebody who is good at being decisive and saying no, and you'll start doing things that are more like that person who is. And eventually you'll realize that you've changed a bit.
Yeah.
And that when you do it now, it's not so much that you're pretending, it's that you just sort of know how to do it now. So actually, fake it till you make it is just practice doing what you're not good at doing.
Yeah.
And she was just talking about how important it is to view all of those things as practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about as well with the making art and not feeling bad about it not being good because, well, it's still in the spirit of practice.
Yeah.
So as long as you're doing it, you're learning something about that.
Yeah. And you're adding one to the bank of like, yeah, I thought something would come out and something came out. And I didn't think anything would before I sat down. And lo and behold, there's something there. And I think the more you have in the bank, or like the reservoir of, well, I faked it then. Because every time I sit down to make some art or write some stories and I got a blank page in front of me, it's like, I'm never going to be able to do it. I can't come up with something good. But every time, even though I've done both loads. So I wonder if it's like, not even just fake it till you make it, just fucking fake it. You have to just fake it all the time. And faking it will become easier and easier. And actually making it is just faking it really easily. Because I don't know, fake till you make it, I like that sentiment, but it almost seems like you only need to fake it for a certain amount of time. And then life will be easy. And I'm not sure why, but I feel like I've shelved the idea that you get over the mountain.
Yeah.
And it seems to make the faking it easier because it's just like, well, this is what it is. This is actually what doing it is. It's just...
That's interesting. You shelved the idea that you get over the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, because for a while, for my... probably the earliest stages of my adulthood, I was constantly thinking, oh, it will be so nice when I can write all day. When I start making money from my work and that will free up the day, it'll be so nice when I have 8 hours in front of me to just write. It will be so nice when everybody's telling me my work is great and I feel confident about all my creative output. It'll be so nice when life is easy. It'll be so nice when I'm a fucking real adult who finds everything easy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was hard. It was extremely difficult because I would wake up and my day-to-day life was so far from all those things that every time there was a little hiccup, it was like existential crisis. Because it was like, dude, you're supposed to be getting towards perfection or ease. And it's like, but it's just getting harder. And through being introduced to different ideas and I don't know why exactly. It would take me a long time to unpick all the equations that went into that shelving that idea, but I feel better since I've started thinking like it's always going to be difficult and I'm never going to have enough time. But that seems counterintuitive in a way because it's like, wouldn't it be harder if you were thinking that shit? But I think what it's made easier is to just focus on now. Because it's like, well, if it's like this in the future, I might as well just work hard now. Because it's going to be like this in the future. So I'm not just this isn't just a means to an end. I think that's it, actually. today is not a means to tomorrow being easier.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow's not going to be easier. It's probably going to be harder. So today is an end in itself.
Mm.
So do the best you can today. Yeah, I don't know. Because not everybody makes art, right? And I'm not telling people everybody should cut faces out of magazines. But having something in our life, I think, that shows us that, I don't know.
I think those things are really useful for, well, I know that they're certainly useful for the work I'm in, that thing of, you know, yeah, I think they're useful for any kind of work, really. That thing of like accepting that it's gonna get harder and I'm never gonna have enough time is really useful, because I know that I'm sort of thinking along those lines you were talking about. You know, I've been thinking that way about my job as well, that like, oh, you know, if I work really hard today and like answer all of these emails today, then tomorrow I'll just have time and I'll have so much time and I can do these bits of things that I've been meaning to get to for ages. So I won't do them now.
Yeah.
I'll do all of these emails now that just like need to quickly be answered, and I'll get through all that stuff, and then tomorrow I'll have like all this time.
Yeah.
And you know what, tomorrow you've got another 30 emails waiting for you when you get in, and it's the same thing again, or it's worse because you think, oh, but today was meant to be my free day.
Yeah, it is worse.
And it's like you can't safeguard your time in that way.
Yeah.
You know, by thinking that, yeah, I'll just wait because tomorrow I'll have all this time. I mean, there's some ways that you can, you know, you can block off days or whatever to work from home, but that means that you don't do anything else. Like, you're not even looking at the other emails that are coming in, and you just are solely doing that bit of work that day.
Yeah. And we probably get, if you're lucky, you get a couple weeks of those.
Yeah.
In a year. Yeah. And that's not enough to keep you sane.
No. But yeah, I think that is really useful. Yeah. I think the thing of trying to see your weaknesses or your areas you don't feel strong and capable in as your training grounds. Those are the places where you're just doing exercises to make yourself stronger in them. It's really good. And I wish I didn't find it so hard in the moment where I'm experiencing them to remember that.
Yeah.
You know. But I think what you said about having something, maybe a creative thing alongside, just having something like that in your life is a useful way.
Yeah. Because the other thing that came to my mind quickly when you were talking about achievements was like high school sports, where you got ribbons saying 1, 2, 3, and then participant, because I lived in Canada and everybody got participant badges. In my long distance cross country running, everybody got a participant badge. But that's so, like, nice to be given a number. To be like, this is where you are. And to have a handful of original art, pieces of art, is a nice way of being like, look, 5, you know? And we live on the computer now, and seeing 12 likes or 14 emails, or like, we never feel, we never, it's so constant and so immaterial that I think it's very easy to feel like, even though you're running as fast as you can, you're just in the same place all the time. And actually, people are getting better all the time and improving. And if they had a high school coach doing their times, they would see that they were actually getting better and better. And I think that's probably one reason why it's good to keep learning things.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I started swimming again, I did it for like a year, and by the end, I could. When I stopped doing it, I was just starting to swim in the fast lane, and I realized I was gonna have to really work hard if I wanted to, like, be able to swim in the fast lane and not piss everybody else off. But when I was in the medium lane, I was like bumping into people, so I was like, "Ah, fuck this," and I just haven't gone back since. And when I first got into the pool a year before, I couldn't regulate my breathing, and I would come up after one length totally spluttering and, like, coughing my lungs out and echoing through the pool, and the lifeguards were looking at me like, are we gonna have to fucking jump in? But day to day, I didn't know I was getting better. And but I had to tell myself, obviously you're getting better, dude, because when you first got in, you couldn't swim, and now you're actually, like, you can swim really well. Or you can swim, at least. So it was so obvious for me that even though the inner voice of, like, dude, you still suck, you haven't got any better, this is a waste of time, that voice is still there, but it has to be shut the fuck up because there's visual evidence that it's wrong. And I think that's it, because the voice is always going to be there, but the more visual evidence you can show, look, I went from 5 seconds to 4, or like a minute to 50 seconds, or I went from 0 pieces of art to 5, or I went from... We need visual distinctions. Like when we were hunter-gatherers, like, I had no berries and now my mouth is blue. Like,
Yeah.
where in the world do we get that online?
Yeah. And I've been thinking when you were talking about yoga as well, because I think that's the place in my life that I've sort of had that experience. But then it gets really complicated, or not complicated, it's just, like, interesting, because then, you know, real yogis and yoga teachers would say to you, yeah, but there's no such thing as getting better at yoga. And it's not about getting better or improving yourself, you know. It's the idea that we're perfect as we are. Well, I don't know. Some people would take that.
Would they say
line,
that,
probably.
or do you think, like, deepening your practice?
Yeah. It's not that it's about getting better at yoga. It's about, yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people now in this sort of new mindset of yoga would say it's just about feeling more comfortable in your body.
Yeah. But...
That's a really hard thing to measure.
Exactly. Give me a fucking scale of 10 here.
If you're not somebody who's got a real injury or a real serious health issue, it's actually a hard thing to measure, I have found.
Yeah.
And there are times when, there's certainly times where I've noticed I have more energy or I feel lighter. You know, if times where I've been practicing a lot, which I'm not at the moment, you know, because I don't have as much time. But the times where I was practicing loads, sure, I probably did feel better in my own body.
Yeah.
But it does give you useful visual clues because
Yeah.
a year ago I couldn't hold myself on my hands in crow at all. It was just take one foot off, put it back down, take the other foot off, try
Yeah.
taking both feet, fall.
Yeah.
Whereas now I can, and it's different every time, and sometimes I'll get up into it and then it's like straight back down. But I can just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a really useful visual cue.
That's an achievement.
Yeah.
That's an achievement. If someone asks you what's an achievement, I can pop a crow.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really useful having something in your life where you can see those visual cues of you getting better.
Yeah. Because it takes a second to think about it, and it takes even more seconds to have the argument in your mind where it's like, well, that's not that, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, shut the fuck up. But then I think it's like, oh, well, I must be, or maybe it makes it easier to then make the leap of like, oh, I must also be improving in other aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, it's so interesting how it works because, like, the other day I got, like, feedback sent to me anonymously from a colleague saying good stuff about, like, how great I was doing and how hard I work and how much I was achieving. And I don't know what I was doing that caused that person to say that. Like, I have no idea what it is about my work that has meant that this year I'm getting that feedback and last year I got no feedback.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think that's a useful thing to not know what it is that's changed. Because, my immediate thought is, oh, it would be lovely if I could feel like, oh, great, yeah, I have been getting way better at this thing and now I'm having someone tell me I am as well.
Yeah. Yeah, like the morning of that email, it's like, I wonder if I'm getting better at this. And then you get that email saying that.
Yeah. It's not like last year I couldn't do this thing and this year I can do this thing. Like
Yeah, totally. Well, how do you get quantifiers for like communicating?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if it's just like, if someone's telling you that, then just keep doing what you're doing. Even though keep doing what you're doing is like constantly gasping just above the surface, seemingly. But we constantly tell ourselves we're making no progress and we haven't achieved anything and like it's still really difficult and there's no time in the world. But the world is actually telling me otherwise.
Yeah. 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 And that's where you've got to do that thing that I think Jordan Peterson talks about of like, you don't know shit about yourself and other people do.
Yeah.
So listen to what other people are telling you.
Yeah.
Which again feels really counterintuitive because you're always told listen to yourself and follow yourself and like at various stages of your life that might be true, but there are other stages of your life where listening to yourself is the last thing that you should maybe do.
Yeah.
And the first thing you should do is listen to what feedback people are giving you.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's not as extreme as that, but I feel like right now I need to listen more to that person who sent that feedback in than I need to listen to myself.
Yeah.
Because myself is saying, you have no idea what's going on. You know?
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on, and you can't do all of these things that people are asking you to do.
Yeah.
And you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And it's all getting too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if one way to think about the benefits of that voice is it's better to have that voice and the tools to reply to that voice than just to not have that voice. I think it's better to go through life thinking those things and being like, actually, fuck off. I'm going to listen to other people for a while. Because when you need that, when you are making mistakes, you need that voice to fix you.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have that voice, I think we'd just end up down the worst paths because we'd go, I'm right all the time. I'm doing amazing. And you're like sitting on the couch doing nothing with your life. It's that voice that gets us out of bed and makes us hustle. And we need to hustle really because we're so, well, I don't know what other people are, but I am so good at just being like, tomorrow will be easier. I'll just like, well, something that I find the internet is really good for is like, I have 1,000 things to do and I'm watching fail videos.
Yeah.
And for like an hour. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? You have a lot of things to do. And it's like, it's almost like I have too much to do, so I'm just gonna like tune out completely.
Yeah. See, mine is you've got 1,000 things to do, so I'm gonna do something that feels like I'm doing something, but it's not doing any of the things I know I should, like cleaning the kitchen.
Yeah.
Or like.
I don't even go that virtuous. I'm just like, just fucking, I hate myself.
But I don't know, it's the same thing, really.
Yeah, I think so.
It's just in a different packaging.
Yeah.
And I don't know that because at the end of it, I feel tired and like I have no energy to then do the things that I know I should have been doing.
Yeah.
And I haven't done any of them still. But yeah.
But the more like weapons in your toolkit that serve you to reply to that voice. Like, no, look, I can go into Crow. No, look, I got an email. No, look, you didn't know what you were talking about last time, and you fucking like nailed one of your goals. So thank you, but not right now, sort of thing. And building a healthy relationship with that voice, because that voice is a part of us, I think. And actually, we better hold it tight and dear to our hearts, because that will get us out of hell if we follow our stupid asses down there. But day to day, it's like, okay, I know you're there still, thanks, cheers, but not today. I'm not in hell today. Otherwise, it's like, I need to just like beat that voice down to submission. I need to get rid of that voice, which is telling me I'm nothing. It's like, well, do you really want to not have that voice? I don't know.
That voice can put you in hell.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
right?
Totally. Oh, yeah.
It's that bit from Paradise Lost. The mind of man. I know I can't remember the exact bit, but it's something about like the power of our minds is such that we can make a heaven of a hell and a hell of heaven.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder if that's that binary thing where everything is its opposite, where it's like that thing can put you in hell but also take you out of it. So learn who it is.
Yeah.
Become familiar with it, make it your friend. Because it's probably through abusing it that it takes you to hell. Or ignoring it and it grows so monster-like in the basement that it just takes you out first opportunity. Can I read you one more quote as a closer, maybe?
Yeah, of course.
As a palate cleanse after all that. This is something a little different. It's from a picture book called The History of the Future, Images of the 21st Century.
And when was it
I
written?
don't know. I don't
Or
imagine that old. 80s maybe. But it's like... It's... Can't seem to find a year. Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. Oh, no.
$1955?
Is that this
Oh,
one?
no, that's when that picture was done.
Yeah.
It must have a...
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
But it's like going... Oh, here. I can put it in the back. 1993.
Oh, right.
But it's going back through the 20th century, looking at what people thought what the future would be.
Okay.
So it's got like quotes from H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and pictures of dudes on flying bicycles and what people thought cities would look like in the year 2000, but making their predictions in the late 1800s or 1900s. And it's just hilarious. But it's really interesting because it's talking about like the predictions that were made, and everybody thought we'd be in like flying cars and just doing everything flying. But also people were like super into computers, and there's one picture which is like a guy watching Can on the wall in his room that's being projected from like a phonograph. So yeah, it's just I'm finding it really interesting. Plus the pictures are really sweet. But there's one part that I want to read you, and it's a little confusing because they just like they write as if the future had come true as according to the predictions made by a bunch of different people. So they're not saying like Jules Verne said this would happen, or they're saying like this has happened.
Oh, right, okay. This has happened, and look what Jules Verne was saying.
They don't even say...
Oh, right.
They say like if Jules Verne predicted that everybody would be in flying cars, instead of saying that, they would say everybody is now in flying cars.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's kind of confusing, but anyway, I think it's interesting. This little section's called The March of the Suffragettes. Some pioneering women had drawn attention to themselves early on through their writings and their outrageously liberated lifestyles. Discarding their long dresses, women began by shortening their skirts, then wore gaiters and ended up wearing trousers and a masculine style of dress. Women's skirts were extremely short, worn over. So this is like what people had predicted would happen.
Oh, right.
So it's not it's as if it's talking as a history, but they are predictions that people were making for the future.
Okay.
During the reign of Carol the Great, the revolt of 1922 ends with the passing of a law of equality between the sexes. From now on, emancipation meant that women could both vote and be elected, and the honor of being the first female member of Parliament fell to Martha Brown. Whether there were lawyers or bankers, women had serious-sounding first names. Needlework was banned and consequently had to be done in secret. Needless to say, after the no-birth strike, women no longer raise their own children, this work being taken in hand by the state. Babies are fed collectively by steam-powered feeding. Sometimes, as in 1948, as a result of the over-enthusiastic application of Malthusian principles, we find a shortage of children, so national maternity hospitals have to be set up. These are full-time baby factories. There are plans to ban celibacy and to tax it at a rate proportional to the age of the person concerned. In London, a kind of obligatory Mormonism is in force, which involves, among other things, marriage warehouses and prison for bachelors. We learn that each town has its marriage avenue and that marriage adverts hang from the stage curtains of theaters. A law of 1932 lays down the number of children that couples are expected to provide to the state, as from the first year of marriage and in the years thereafter. Rule by women is predicted by more than one author. It is political, tyrannical, and unlivable, and appears in 1930, 40, and 2002, but may be projected as far forward as 2174 or 2525. Some proclaim that marriage will disappear and that love will come to be seen as a sickness. They predict that a revolt of women will bring about a reduction in and an abolition of the male gender. Utopian matriarchy is almost always a synonym for oppression and can develop as far as rule solely by the female sex, made possible by means of parthenogenesis. Jean Rostand evoked this possibility. Are we perhaps not far from the day when human beings will be born without fathers? What will they look like? Everything suggests that they will belong to the female sex, and that they will be identical with their mothers, rather like younger twin sisters. What'd you think of that?
Is that meant to be a palate cleanser?
Yeah. Should we take it up next time?
God.
It's brutal, eh? Or is it, It is political, tyrannical, and unlivable.
What was that about?
Rule of women. But yeah, the abolition of the male gender.
Yeah.
Utopian matriarchy is almost always a synonym for oppression.
And then was it going through when women would be in power, saying rule by women is predicted by more than
One author, political, tyrannical, and unlivable.
Oh yeah, and appears in 1930,
Yeah.
1940, and 2002.
But maybe projected as far forward as 21. So yeah, a few different. I wonder if they were straight white men.
That's interesting. That so like people were predicting that needlework would be banned as well.
Yeah, and had to be done in secret.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from that, emancipation meant the women could both vote and be elected. So that was being predicted.
Mm.
Then the no birth strike.
Yeah.
And then state babies being fed collectively by steam-powered feeding.
Jeez. It's really interesting that that's what somebody was thinking about and thinking, how can we industrialize this?
Yeah.
Or that was seen that was like a big issue.
Yeah. Bit of fun, eh?
Cool.
Cool. Call there.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks.
Thanks.